Most strong, independent women develop this amazing skill throughout life that a lot of people rely on, and they even depend on themselves. However, even though it can seem like it's their greatest strength, it actually ends up being their greatest weakness. And the reason for that is because their identity becomes warped in it. And I want to talk about problem solving, because the problem solving skill is the Achilles heel to the strong, independent woman. All right. So my name is Michelle. I'm a faith-based mindset coach, and this is something I'm very passionate about, helping women evolve out of this state of relying so heavily on these different survival strengths and actually learn how to embrace divine empowerment so that they can create more of the reality that they desire, so they can experience life in a better way. Now, the benefit of when you have this strong problem solving skill is obviously you can see it. There's a lot of things that you can create, whether it be stability, security, etc. However, it doesn't always translate well in relationships, and it especially doesn't translate well when it comes to the internal experience that that woman is having. Oftentimes, when you see a woman that has a very strong problem solving skill, she often ends up feeling underappreciated. She ends up feeling burnt out. She ends up feeling unfulfilled, rejected. There's so many things that these kind of women go through because of this very skill. So this one skill can actually end up being your greatest weakness if you don't learn how to properly steward it. And it's something that you need to surrender. And I want to talk about what that looks like a little bit more. Now, I want to say at least 90% of the clients that I sit down with, the ones that have developed this problem solving skill, it almost always goes back to childhood. There was some kind of scenario that happened where there was a gap, or there was like some kind of surviving happening, whether it be that there was an absence of a parent, whether it be that both parents were too busy working and weren't in the home. It could have been divorce, it could have been a death, it could have been adoption, whatever it may be. But there's always some kind of instability that they were raised in, and that instability or that lack required them to fill the gap. And for whatever reason, the family placed that on top of them. But 9 times out of 10, it almost always ends up happening to the eldest one. So now these women who I love dearly, unfortunately end up in a scenario where they don't get that adequate love that they should have received as a child. Because they were in this parental role, they never got the pleasure of receiving love in that kind of way. So now how do they as a child create love? Well, they create love by doing the thing that makes people applaud them, which is solving more problems. So their love now, they get it from their performance. They don't get it from simply being and existing. So people have this hypercritical condemnation towards women who are fierce and independent and strong, etc. But what people oftentimes don't understand, and what these women oftentimes don't understand themselves, is that the only way they know how to exist and the only way they know how to receive love is within their performance. So there's constantly this, I need to do, I need to be, I need to this, I need to that in order for me to be acceptable. So being able to sit still and simply be, it's something that, their body almost rejects because of the fact that they are so well trained in solving problems, and that's always been their value. So their value system is built on this. So these women can end up being some of the most lonely women on earth. And when I say lonely, it's not in the way that you guys think of it. It's not being alone. Most of these women oftentimes do not mind being alone, especially for long periods of time, because at the end of the day, they know how to hold their own. Okay. When I say lonely, I mean that even when they are surrounded by people, they feel misunderstood, constantly feeling misunderstood, constantly feeling misjudged, all of that. So when you deal with this so much and you know your heart, and clearly you have been conditioned and trained to care for others, like that has been their conditioning since childbirth, yet people are casting and projecting a different image on them when their core identity is helping people solve their problems, right? Literally their mindset is wired in rescuing people. So you can only imagine how frustrating that is to have a mindset that's wired to rescue people, and then having people attacking you and basically telling you, for example, you're not enough, like society is trying to do. So I have a lot of compassion for these women because I understand how unloved they felt throughout life, and how their way of getting love is literally in the very identity that's causing the problems that they're experiencing. So all the work that I do is helping them get out of this trap. I'll add on more to show you why. When you have a problem solving skill, right, and that's your identity, it's not just a skill, it's an identity. When that is your identity, it's like giving someone a hammer. If the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So you're always going to be looking for an opportunity to essentially hammer something down. When you have a problem solving skill, and that's where your self-worth comes from, that's where your value comes from, and you've been conditioned and trained in this, that means all you can do is look for problems. So these women end up being hypercritical. They end up being hyper aware, hyper vigilant. They end up having this mindset that's always hyper aware of what's going on around them and seeing what needs to be fixed. Now, for you that's on the receiving end, or for the person that's on the receiving end, that feels like judgment, right? That feels like condemnation. That feels like all of these different things, because it's almost never perceived well, because people don't see that skill when it's coming towards them as something that's beneficial. They see it as something hurtful or harmful. And this only creates confusion. It creates this tug and pull of like, do you love me or do you love me not? What I mean is like, okay, so you want me to fix a problem. I come up with the best idea and scenario for you to fix that problem. So now you want my problem fixing skill. So you love me. Yay, thank you so much. And then you come back to me and you give me another problem. And then I tell you about the role that you played in that problem and where that is. And then now it's like, oh my gosh, I hate you. So it's like, wait, do you love me or do you hate me? Like, what is it? Like, I did nothing different. All I did was do the same thing I do every single time, which is solve problems. You bring something to me, solve problems. But these women, oftentimes, they're in scenarios where if they don't have a problem to solve, it doesn't sit well with them. It doesn't sit well with their spirit. And this also translates into relationships, etc. Here's my whole point, overarching point here. It's a survival skill. It's a survival skill that has, it's on steroids, right? It's on steroids, and it's ruining your life. It's ruining your life. And you need to do something about it, especially to get the experience that you desire to experience in life. And there's work you're going to need to do, which is releasing these strengths that look like strengths, but really at this point, because they become your identity, they're weaknesses. God never gave you these strengths to become your identity. He gave you the strengths for this to be a tool. So now what I do, especially in my Beauty for Ashes program, is that I help you learn how to surrender that strength and get divine empowerment. Because what the biggest fear for these women is to have nothing at all. I know I need strength because they're hyper aware of all the dangers in life. I need strength. No one's taking your strength away. I'm not taking your strength away. I'm evolving it. Well, I'm not doing it. God is doing it. But I provide the framework for him to work with you to evolve that skill into something more stronger and powerful. And now it's just a tool, and it's not your identity. Because everything that's happening right now, it's because you are one giant big hammer. And you're getting in your own way, because the only way you know how to function is by hammering things. And the solution is not to, well, I just won't be a hammer. I'll just go back in my toolbox. And that's usually what happens, is like these extremes. Either I'm a hammer or I'm in my toolbox. I'm not dealing with anyone. And there's a way that you can evolve with balance, where you can still have this strength, but it's not overpowering your life and your relationships. Okay? So if you'd like help with that, go ahead, click the link in my bio to my Beauty for Ashes program. It's a full workshop. And then it's also going to come with a 21-day faith-centered transformation guide. Has journal prompts, everything you do to help you purge out this thing, right? I do recommend you do it with the fast, like I do with all my guides. But this one especially, I recommend you do it. So I love you, and I am rooting for you. Have a great day. Bye.